We're going to be talking about shading and dimension and lighting right now. We're starting right now from a 7 by 5, 7 inches high, 5 inches wide by 300 pixels per inch. Just gives me enough working room to kind of get in here and show details. So that's our background. I'm going to give that a little bit of color just so what we're doing will stand out. I kind of come in here and get some kind of color going on. How about a little medium gray there? Okay, I'm going to go up one layer and draw out an oval. And I just reset my default colors because I want to use black and white for the next few steps. So I'm going to pretty much center that oval shape. And I am going to fill that with white. So my white is my foreground color at this point because I just reset those and switched them. So I have a white oval now. I'm not going to deselect it. I'm going to use the gradient tool, and this will automatically make a new layer when you use it now, not like it used to be if you've used Photoshop way back when. This is a new kind of tool. It's not rasterized. So I'm going to decide where is my light coming from. In this case, let's bring it from the top of the egg straight down. So that's where my gradient is going to go. Top of the egg, straight down. Now, you have to make sure that you are in the radial gradient. That's the second one up here. If you're not, you can switch it at this point still. You don't have to come in and stay in the same gradient. So that is a nice option to know about. Oops, don't want to do that. I'm going to just move it back over to the center. So now you see we have the egg standing on its end, lit from the top. If you want to change the angle, we'll do that in a minute. Eggs are not smooth, so I'm going to go back down to the layer underneath with the white. But before I do that, I'm going to change the blend mode of the gradient layer to multiply. That means it's providing shading, but it's not providing the actual color itself. It's not hiding the layer underneath it. It's adding it to the layer underneath it. It's adding the depth or darkness to it. So now I'm going to go back down to that layer. I'm going to again make a selection to make sure what I do doesn't go outside the shape of the egg. So Command or Control click on the egg and in the thumbnail, and then go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise. I don't need a lot of noise, probably about 12, I would say. That's pretty close. Right there, looks pretty good. Maybe just a little bit less, I'd say 10. Right there, and then click OK. Oh, when you do the noise filter, just make sure, I had done this before, so it was already set to Gaussian and monochromatic. You want it Gaussian and monochromatic. You don't want color. The monochromatic means it's black and white. You're not going to get any kind of little color dots. Next, maybe you don't want a white egg. Maybe you want a brown egg, because in New England, brown eggs are local eggs and local eggs are fresh. That's the saying. So let's make a brown egg. We're going to use the egg shape to make a selection. Again, Command or Control click on that, depending on whether you're Apple or PC. And then come up above the gradient fill. That's a fine place to do it. Make the layer a color layer, so you know what you're getting into, and then go pick out a nice brownish color that you might think an egg would be. Maybe like that. And it's pretty yellow, so I'm going to just tone that down using saturation. Just bring down the saturation a touch. And that looks pretty good. I can also play with it in here and see if we get a brown that we like. Looks pretty good. I'm going to fill in the background color with a different color so we're not quite so clashy right there. Okay. Or we can even just change it to white at this point, because we are definitely seeing the shape of the egg now. It's not disappearing. So either way, whatever you want to do. But now we have our brown egg. It's lit from above. We have it coming down below. If you think it's a little bit too much, and as far as the darkness of the egg down below. You can change the opacity. You can also work on the shadow itself, so, or on the gradient itself. Just bring the gradient out farther, and that will, see how when you bring it closer, you've got that black is the second color. It's going to be more black. If you bring it out farther, it's going to be less black. So you're controlling the gradient that way. You can also bring the egg to a more gradual transition to that darkness by changing the middle little pointer here, the middle spot on the gradient. And that will give you a more higher tonality up top, high key, more light, and dark down here, more shadow down here, more quick drop off in this, but see, I haven't brought it too much. It's just down a little bit. So we're getting just a little more gradual drop off with the lights and a quicker drop off with the blacks there. So we're controlling our gradient. Okay, so now we want the egg to be sitting on something, and right now it's floating in air. So we need to add some shadows. So I'm coming down and putting the shadows underneath the egg itself. The white part is the egg. The color is, I'm going to label these. So we color and gradient fill and egg shape. Okay, so those are our 3 layers. I'm actually going to click those 3, hit Command or Control G to put them all in a group. You can also put them in a group that way, drag them in, and then this is the egg right here. So now we have that. So we're going to do the contact shadow first. This is the little shadow that wherever it touches the ground. So I'm going to be at 100%. I'm going to use a fairly small brush because there's not much area on an egg that actually touches the ground. I'm going to float that in and just put it down there at the bottom. And if you don't like the shape of it, you can always come in with your eraser and kind of reshape it. I'm using a soft-edged eraser and just getting that point where it hits the bottom of the egg, where the egg is on the surface. Okay, next I want to make another new layer. This is going to be the mid shadow, like that. And I'm going to enlarge my brush, still soft edge brush, new layer. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to click off the egg so you can see, is putting in brush right here. And I want 100% for the flow, 100% for the opacity. Bring it in, and let's do about that size. You don't want it going to the edges of the canvas particularly. So now I'm going to take that layer, I'm going to squish it down, Command or Control will let you squish it down a bit, and turn my egg back on so I can see where to put it, and drag that shadow down, and this is the mid shadow. So it's going to be a little more intense than the big outer shadow, but it's not going to be as intense as the contact shadow. So we're going to put it down like this, kind of center it there, and we're going to drop the opacity of that back just a bit, maybe to 70-80%. I like about 85% maybe. Looks pretty good. Okay, so there's your mid shadow. Another new layer, and we are going to make a much bigger area here. So again, I'm going to turn the egg off just so you can see where I'm painting. You can do this under the egg, and I'm going to make a big dab here. It's a little bit bigger, and again, I'm going to turn the egg back on and then just reshape that shadow so that it comes down, and then like that. So we have this shadow, and that again, I want to probably put that down at 80% or maybe even a little bit less. I'm going to try 60. Yeah, I like 60%, 50% maybe is about where we want it. So we have our mid shadow, our contact shadow where it's actually touching the ground, and then our big diffuse shadow. So we're going to call that diffuse shadow. So we have our 3 layers of shadow. And then we have we have nailed our egg to the ground, and that is how you build a shadow and how you build dimension. Now, that does not mean that you cannot come in here and add a little bit more if you want. I'm going to copy that group and just use the top group merge down. So I made it a group so that I could preserve the original group as insurance. I have my regular egg here that with all the layers compressed, and I can still come in here with the burn and dodge tool if I want to have just a little more drama at the edges. So I am in the burn tool, I'm at 50% midtones, and I'm just going to come in and see how I can come in and just add a little bit more shadowing there if I want it, and see how that kind of ramps up the drama of the shadow if we want it to be. You can also bring that back, you know, if you want to use the history brush here. I can tell it I want to go back about 50%. I just want a hint of that. So I'm coming in here with the history brush at 50% and just bringing that back just a bit. But you can control so much of that now. And I still have my original egg. If I want to go back and I decide I want the change made in the direction of light, I'm going to go to the gradient fill layer, activate the gradient tool, and now because I haven't rasterized this, I can move the direction of light anywhere I want it. So now I want the light to come from the side. Up here, that's about what, if we're again looking at the compass north, south, east, west, that's about west, northwest up there, a little bit higher, but you can put it anywhere. It's totally up to you. But that means now we also have to change our shadows. So especially the diffuse shadow, that's going to be way, way over here now, because it's going to be that same angle, the one that we saw with the gradient. So let me go back to the gradient layer. That's where our sun, if we go from here to here, that is pointing directly at our light source. And light travels in a straight line. It does not curve. Light travels in a straight line. It's just not a small straight line usually. So that means we're going to get nice soft light if it's a big light. If it's a smaller light, then we are going to get much more defined light. Okay, so we have moved our light and our diffuse shadow's gone back. We're going to move that over again. And that's going to, right there, we see the direction of light. So that's where our shadow is going to be because the light is falling in a straight line. So, okay, we've moved the big shadow. We need to move the mid shadow as well. Don't have to move it a lot, just over a little bit. And then the contact shadow where it's actually sitting, you may have to move that just a little bit as well, just a little tick over, but it's basically going to be sitting on the same surface, so it doesn't have to move very much. So that is more in line with the light coming from this direction. Again, if you want to kind of play up the shadows there, let me just copy that group again. I'm going to turn that one off. I'm going to flatten that group, Command and Control I, come in here with the dodge tool and just kind of dodge that a little bit more. Going to up that a little bit. There we go. A little bit brighter light there. And then we can come in and darken the shadow over here for a little bit more extra drama if you want more light that way. You can always play with the light yourself and move up the drama by adding intensity to the shadows. Again, if it's too much, I think it might be, I'm just going to go back with the history brush and kind of soften that up. I'm at 40% with the history brush and just take a little of that back, and even right there, maybe just a little bit back there. So again, you have total control. You've made an object that started off as absolutely nothing but blank screen, but now we have something that looks very three-dimensional. In the next video, we'll talk about the background.